Hey, peace. Uhuru, welcome to another episode of We Charge Colonialism. Used to be podcast and book club, but now we're the new Pan-African book club, but it's still us. I'm Ikemba, co-host, writer of We Charge Colonialism, here with my co-host. I want to introduce.
Natasha, just co-host and community organizer. Free them all.
Free
Free
of
all
them all.
political prisoners.
Hey everyone, this is Frank, host for the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series every Sunday at 1 p.m.
Hey, yes, and we are your team. Happy to be here. Happy to continue these discussions and carry on the work of liberation. Today is not even we have a new name change, but also starting a new book, Gerald Horne's "The Apocalypse of Settler Colonialism." And so I'm excited to get into this book because I had some criticisms of the last book we had, but I picked it, so I can't say too much. But I thought it was cool the discussions we were able to have around Nigeria and occupied Azania were good. We're always going to sum things up, but today we're going to be starting Gerald Horne's work. But before we get into the book, we usually do our weekly roundup. But everybody's just talking. There's only one thing in the news right now. Everybody's talking about the U.S. elections that took place earlier in the week. Before we get into talking about the elections, I just wanted to let folks know that one of our former political prisoners, Daruba bin Wahad, is in need of some resources. They're having an event in Philadelphia today to raise those resources. But I want to make sure that I just make you all aware that there's a way that you can support Comrade Baba Daruba bin Wahad, former Black Panther Party. But I always, Black Panther Party, you always remember. So veteran Black Panther Party member and Black Liberation Army member, someone who spent decades behind bars, fighting for the liberation of African people. So, Huru, big up to him. And I'm going to put across the screen the GoFundMe for those who want to support and send donations. And for a quick second, I just want to put on the screen the QRC for those who would like to donate. You can scan that QRC. I think it takes you right there. See if I can make it a little bigger. How does that look, y'all? Is that
Make it a little bigger if you can.
bigger?
Yeah, just like make it a little bigger. There we go, and scroll up.
All right.
That's
All right. So yeah, we have to do our due diligence, man, because when we look at it, there's talk. I think there's a lot of focus on some of the civil rights leaders and those who, Black public officials, those community leaders who fought to like break down segregation. But there's a lot of like unsung heroes that were part of that resistance to really move the needle, because a lot of the concessions that America made was a result of that fierce resistance, right? That direct action on the establishment that said, "Hey, this is the other alternative. You have to deal with us. Who's willing and prepared to defend ourselves and fight for our rights by any means necessary." Or you can deal with the more sort of passive approach, those who are looking to like assimilate and integrate into the system and just want some reforms in the system. So without, I think, the Ruba bin Wahads and the Huey P. Newtons and the Fred Hamptons, a lot of those concessions wouldn't have been made. But any thoughts that y'all had about our political prisoners? Anything that y'all wanted to say, or former political prisoners?
Also, I will say that Veronza Bowers, who was just released from prison, a political prisoner, well, now former political prisoner, but still technically, right, in a sense. But
we all prisoners of war. We all still, yeah.
He will be in New York on the 20th. And he will be doing a performance. Veronza Bowers is an amazing flutist. So, I know how people hype up Andre 3000's, music and his flute music, but his flute music don't have nothing on Veronza Bowers' flute music. It's amazing. So, he will be in New York on November 22nd. Sorry. And he will be doing a performance in New York, and you could go ahead and register for that as well. And I can, should I put it up now? I guess maybe should I show the?
Yeah, you got it. You
yeah.
Put it up.
So
and peace. I forgot to tell folks, make sure you subscribe if this is your first time to the channel, and of course, like and share. Get folks in the room, get folks in here, tap into the conversation.
I think I might have it on my phone actually, the image, but I'll grab it and throw it up when I get a chance. But yes, so definitely Friday, November 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. He'll be doing his performance, and it'll be a sound healing experience with a chance for asking questions. So it'll be a question and answer section as well. So people can definitely support that and I believe the link for you to donate to him as well, because he recently, just like the last 2 months, was freed from prison after being behind the wall for 50 years. So we know our political prisoners do not, our freedom fighters do not have pensions and do not have Social Security when they come out. So we as a community have to make sure that those who, like you were mentioning before, step up and, do the work for our community and for future generations, that we support those, especially knowing that we want others and ourselves to continue in that same line. And just in the same way you reward or, you protect and you support those who fight for you. I mean, others do that. We have to do the same thing. We can't let those who fought for us go by the wayside. So, yeah. And then just to your comment in terms of, who the powers that be, the government, the U.S. government is more willing to deal with, right, when they are faced with a serious challenge when it comes to how we decide that we want to move forward toward our liberation. I think part of when we saw coming out of the Black Power movement, all of the imprisonment, the moves by COINTELPRO, the assassinations, and then even moving beyond doing those things, the removal of those who really wanted to do the work for the people versus those who pretended, right, who became Black faces that replaced them as a show of, okay, we're giving you. I think it was Daruba who was mentioning recently, it was the day after the election, who was talking about fighting racism. I think it was Charles Barron who was talking about it, fighting racism, and how we have to fight racism, but we have to be careful about, just seeing it as racism, just thinking racism is what we have to fight against, because then what they'll say is, okay, yeah, we'll show you we're not racist. We'll put Black people in these spaces. You want Black people in these spaces, we'll do that. But you won't put, but you'll put the people who, you feel are more, like you were saying, willing to get along, to go along, those who will not really challenge you as much. And that was what also happened with that people don't think about. And that connects back when we're thinking about the current state today and the election and all that other stuff, how we currently and before then have been being represented by in positions of leadership and positions of stature and notoriety by Black people who are not there to really forward our aims of liberation. They're there to be comfortable, make their money, and go along to get along. But they'll put on a good show and dance for us to make us, believe that they're there for us, but they're really not when we look at their actions.
No, absolutely. And then and Dr. Anderson Wilson, as he talked about, they can point to them and say, look, there's progress being made. And speaking of progress, well, not speaking of progress, the election that just happened, and I know Frank, you're going to be building on that tomorrow. So everybody, make sure you tap into that, because if Frank on Sundays, straight shooter, you're gonna tell it like it is. It's definitely
on Sundays
going down.
And on Saturdays.
and on Saturdays. He
Always.
just has more time on Sundays, uncut. No interruptions. But Frank, what did you think about the election, man?
Man, that was one of the great elections for me.
So one of the greatest I've ever witnessed.
Yeah. Okay.
Let him finish.
I was one of the great, and tomorrow, trust me, it's gonna be real. But for me, I did like how the election result went, because me being a Pan-Africanist and me being a revolutionary, right? And me looking at both candidate, not both party, because we know both party operate the same, right? Whether liberal or conservative, they all have the same agenda. But the candidate do not have the same agenda. Because one is a globalist, and let's say one was a globalist and one was a nationalist, and Trump being the nationalist, right? And being a revolutionary with Trump winning the election, I am not really looking at basically the internal problem, because regardless what a Democrat win, Republican win, the internal problem is still going to be the same. The only difference is the report will be different. The report is different if Democrat is in power, and the report is different if Republican is in power of the internal problem. But regardless what, the problem still remain unsolved, the problem still remain the same, and the struggle remain the same, right? Now, on an international basis, right, it's going to be different, because the man we have in power, he is selfish. Selfish in a sense, he's a nationalist. He don't care what goes on in other country, right? He will tell you, and that's why he told African leaders, African nation, shithole. At first, I got angry, but later on, I began to understand that yes, it is indeed. These leaders are shithole. So Trump is right, and his speech that he gave after he won the election. One main thing that I got from there, I mean, so many things, but one main thing that I got from there, he said, the U.S. support will not go to any corrupt leader, will not go to any corrupt nation. And that is why you see these African leaders right now, they are shaking. And I can tell you, I think Nana Akufo-Addo knew that Donald Trump was going to win the election, right? 2 weeks or 3 weeks to the election, Nana Akufo went and took $250 million from the World Bank, from IMF. $250 million. Now, Nana Akufo-Addo is about to leave power in November, because that's the second term. He's not running for re-election, unless now he wants to tamper with the Constitution of Ghana. But you leaving power in November. Why are you taking loan to do what? Which kind of development you going to do? Are you going to take loan to leave it for the next government coming in power, or this Ghanaian coming election is going to be tempered with that. The same party going to win and continue with the same policy. Because if you are about to leave power in a few weeks' time, right, there's no need to go and take loan, because obviously that loan is not going to be turned over to the next government. The next government is not going to come and see it there. But again, that is why, I'm so happy about this election. And one thing that I'm happy about this election, that the result went the way it went. Obama made a statement. Okay, Obama tried to put again, we all know Obama is a bourgeoisie, but Obama tried to put a black man and a black woman together as enemies. All right, as enemies. Because during that election, Obama did not discuss the issues of African people in this country when it comes to the voters, when it comes to, how do you call it, a black interest in this country, right? When it comes to policy, bad policy making in this country. Obama does not discuss those issues. Obama did not listen to the plight, to the cry of black people in this country, but rather he told black men, why don't you want to vote for a woman? Are you intimidated because a woman is about to be president? Are you intimidated for a woman to be president for you? Are you intimidated? Now, that statement alone, this is one of the reasons why we have to be very careful, because that is why you always see in a black community, in a black area, the black man and the black woman are always forcing with one another. But during this election, you never saw Obama went in a white neighborhood to tell white men, says that, oh, are you afraid of a woman rooting you? That's why you don't want to vote. Are you intimidated of a woman rooting you? That's why you don't want to vote. He did not make that statement. And even that go to the Chinese community. He never made that statement. That go to the Indian community. That statement was never made. Why only in a black community they will send this bourgeoisie to come and put the black woman and the black man head together and to say, now the interest of a black man, or the interest of the black children, or the interest of the black girls and boy, their interest is based on gender. Their interest is based on putting the female in power. When you are leaving the issue of these people and talking about, are you intimidated? No, we were not intimidated, and that is why the Republican won.
Yeah. I would say, like, I ain't gonna say I'm happy about this election result. I don't think I had any sort of emotional reaction to the results. Maybe because I felt like it was going in that direction anyway. And the work that we do, we all of us here, we know we're organizing no matter who's in office. Our goals and objectives aren't really impacted by it. I don't think, because everything that we're doing is nation building, is a part of nation building. We're not trying to build the empire anyway. So what the empire does, maybe it can get a little rougher depending on who the president is, but the establishment is counter to what it is that we want to do. It's antithetical to what it is that we want to do. So that's where, I don't know if you had any thoughts on this whole election thing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say two things. I know, Frank, you said that when he said Africa was shithole countries, where you're like, oh, well, actually they are shithole leaders. I mean, he definitely said they were. The countries in Africa were shithole countries more than just the leaders. I mean, so I would just
you said it about Haiti too, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that, like, I see what you're saying, but I definitely think that in terms of what his statement, he meant it as a broader, in the broader sense. And I do think that even when it comes to Trump, when he's in president, because just like Kamala, like you were saying, right, both of these parties represent the same thing. They represent the settler, colonial, imperialist, militaristic nation of the United States. And so therefore they're going to do what is in the interest of the United States, right, as a military power, as a settler colonial nation. And so Kamala would have done would have continued to carry on that. And I believe that Trump will also continue to carry it on with his own, kind of way of doing it. Like, but I also do think that as far as, you know, him giving aid to corrupt countries, I think the US will still be giving aid to corrupt leaders, because that is part of what allows America to continue to maintain its power. Like when we think about the countries like in the Sahel currently, right? We're not going to see the US be like, oh yeah, well, you know, those are black Pan-African nationalists over there, we're going to support them. We know that they're definitely not going to do that. And for me, like both of you, I'm not really shook up by this election. No, I think that we shouldn't be shook up by this election. I think the thing for me that is stands out the most is how much Black people, but I think it's a way in which this society, those who are in the mainstream, you know, are pushing this feeling. It's like you're telling people to be sad, right? You're telling people to feel like they've lost all hope and that, you know, the world is over for them. Like, it's like they want us to literally have that feeling. They want us to feel that way. They want us to feel demoralized. They want us to feel like, oh my gosh, there's nothing we could do. Since when have African people ever not fought? Since when have we ever not been fighting? Since when has our situation, like Frank was saying, right? A lot of the issues that we have remain the same, no matter what the president. We've had Democratic Republicans. Democratic presidents.
We have had Democratic Republicans. Exactly. That's true.
We've had all of the different kind of presidents, right? And we know that even under, like, we've seen the struggles that we've had under Ronald Reagan, that we've had under presidents that have come before Trump that are Republican. We've had, you know, we went through enslavement in this country. We have the first 13 presidents, slave owners, right? So during Reconstruction, during Jim Crow, during segregation, throughout, even, you know, like during the crack era, like drugs flooding our, like, we even still now, right? When we think about the healthcare that we're still dealing with issues of healthcare, issues of access to food, to clean water under Democratic presidents. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, we are still dealing with the same issues. And I think one of the things, you know, when people are getting ready to do this, like pitting Black men against women, like, oh well, Black women, they went and they voted for Kamala, and Black men, they didn't vote for, you know, Kamala as much as, you know, they should have. And like Frank was saying, right, this idea that like, oh, we should be you know, are Black men too afraid or too threatened to have a Black woman in power? Like, all of this rhetoric around, like, you know, how Black men are not doing what they're supposed to do in terms of voting, or how, you know, like, you know, Black women are the ones who are going to carry us forward. Like, we have to tune a lot of that stuff out, just like we have to tune out a lot of that fear mongering of, you know, how we are positioned now. Like, we are positioned in the same place that we were positioned before. And those of us, I saw something that said recently that during the first Trump presidency, a lot of Democrats became activists, right? And that now they might be, you know, like, it was just like, oh, but now that, you know, after Biden, and so now they might be fatigued to be activists again under another. And I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like, really? Like, when you say before Kimba, like, we have not arrived. There's been a misconception amongst you know, a lot of Black people in the United States that we've arrived. You know, having Kamala as a president, having Obama as a president, that doesn't mean that you arrived. That was just a Black face of white imperialism. That was a Black face of white supremacy. That was a Black face of settler colonialism. Like, do not get it twisted. You have not arrived anywhere. You have not arrived to your liberation. Having the ability to spend as much as you want to spend somewhere, having the ability to fly here because you have an American passport and fly whenever you want, that is not freedom, because we know that at the end of the day, anti-Blackness still rules the world, and that a lot of that is still killing us internally, in terms of, within the United States, nationally and internationally as well. And so we have become so, they have done such a job of making us, only unable to think critically, right? Uneducated about how the global connects with the local, that we have been, so that now a lot of us, when we see this happen, people are, and also this other thing that I thought, that I saw, I mean, there were some other, Black women that I know that I spoke to that were like, what if, I don't understand. What are they doing here? Give a Black woman a hug. We're sorry, Black women.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
About here, like what? Like, are we serious?
Hey,
Like,
folks was messed up though. I ain't even going front. People were like down, out depressed. I came to work and the day after, like a regular day, I'm like, hey, what's going on? How's everything? And the response every time I said it was just like, oh, well, I said, damn, I was like, why everybody so? And then I'm like, well, we did have this election and people are so invested in it. And I guess I wasn't as invested in it as all of these, other people. So I'm just like, wow, it kind of like took me. So, people are Natasha, give a Black woman a hug, man. Stop.
And let me mention this, right? The whole thing about this election, right?
Yeah.
It was between the hierarchy. Okay. It was between the hierarchy, Elon Musk and Bill Gates. Bill Gates on the side of the Democrat, okay, giving $50 million in the campaign. And Elon Musk on the side of the Republican, and they're funding these the Republicans. So these are billionaires, right? Fighting for their interests, one on the other side, and they're pushing their agenda. And then we're thinking it's for us. If these people really truly care about you, why wouldn't they take that $1 billion or that $1 million and come and put it into your institution, your school, your hospital, right? But they took it and put it in campaign, in political party, in politician pocket. And then you sitting there, you go to your job to work for your $10 per hour, your $15, $20 per hour. And then you sitting there, SAR for what? SAR for Bill Gates, because Bill Gates, SAR didn't win. And Elon Musk, SAR won the election. That's what you SAR for. But again, let me just bring this out before it go away. And that is why we are watching, right? We are watching, and I love this generation. Right after the election, Anthony Blinken called Kenya and spoke to Nambi about the issues in Haiti. They say the Kenyan police or military or army personnel in Haiti, they should turn them to be the United Nations. Now, reasons, I don't know, but I would say, I believe the reason why they are saying they should turn the police or the Kenyan police force in Haiti into the United Nations, the Democrat was in power and the Democrat was funding this, okay? Now, the Democrat is not there. It's possible that the funding will not continue to go to Haiti. So in order for the United States, because Kenya being in Haiti, it was the presence of the United States there for the United States to do what she want to do, either to protect certain things in that area. Now, if they turn the Kenyan personnel, police or army personnel in Haiti, right, they turn it into the United Nations. Now, the funding will be passed through the United Nations. So there will be corruption. Either the money will be coming from the Democrat, right? But it will be sent through the United Nations, because you know who controls the United Nations. Just how Bill Gates took $50 million and passed it through a non-profit organization to go to the Democrat. It is the same way that they will pass this funding through the United Nations to say the funding is coming from the United Nations. So it is the United Nations presence in Haiti. Okay, so why you waited right after the election, you lost the election, and then go and say, look, listen, I think the presence of the Kenyan military or personnel in Haiti, we have to turn it into the UN so that it's going to be a UN security forces in Haiti. In the first place, why did you bring them there? Why didn't you carry the United Nations there? But now you want to turn them over to be the United Nations. So I just talked about it, that we are watching, and I think I'm going to look into this deeper, okay, to see this whole thing, because Kenyans have been fighting on the side of the hierarchy of the United States to loot, okay, to exploit the Haitian mineral.
Yeah, yeah. No, we definitely keep us updated. And I know you will continue to look into this, in Google, comrade, brother. So yeah, appreciate.
Can I say
Yeah,
one last thing, Kimba? I think,
yeah,
people thinking about what do we do now. I think one of the things that is important is what do we as a people, as African people, do, not what, like Frank was saying, right? They're having their own battle. We know that this is an internal battle between Europeans, between, who gets to be the one in position in power. And we have to focus on what we do, because that's what's going to get us to where we need to be. So they have their plan of whatever they're going to do in 2025 and moving forward. We have to know what our plan is. We have to know what we're going to do. Less of, having to be afraid of whatever they're going to do. No, what is it that you're going to do? So that was all I wanted to add.
no, I appreciate that. Did you have that flyer? I know you wanted to share something.
Let's share it at the end, because
Okay, and folks, make sure you subscribe if this is your first time here, and like and share. And where else are you going to have conversations like this, man? This is the Black Power Media. Make sure you tune into Black Power Media as well. We do the Rise Up show. I saw Ndugu, Fernando in the chat. Not sure if he's still here, but shout out to you. We're gonna move into our book reading for the last 20 minutes. And for those who are just joining, we're diving into Gerald Horne's book, The Apocalypse of Settler Colonialism. Tongue twister right there. So make sure you hit that notification bell as well. And I'm going to share book up. The link to the book is in the description, so you can click on that link and read along. We'll be covering this for probably the next few weeks. Boom. So since we short on time, I want to get right into it. We're going to start off with the introduction. The year between 1603 and 1714 were perhaps the most decisive. Decisive in English history. At the onset of the 17th century, the Sceptre Isles was a second-class power, but the Great Britain that emerged by the beginning of the 18th century was in many ways the planet's reigning superpower. It then passed the baton to its revolting spawn, the United States, which has carried global dominance into the present century. There are many reasons for this stunning turnabout, yet any explanation that elides slavery, colonialism, and the shards of an emerging capitalism, along with their handmaiden white supremacy, is deficient in explanatory power. From the 16th through the 19th centuries, nearly 13 million Africans were brutally snatched from their homelands, enslaved and forced to toil for the greater good of European and Euro-American powers. London, not least. Oh, shit, did that. From the advent of Columbus to the end of the 19th century, it is possible that 5 million indigenous Americans were enslaved. This form of slavery coexisted roughly with enslavement of Africans, leading to a catastrophic decline in the population of indigenes. In the Caribbean basin, the Gulf Coast, northern Mexico, and what is now the U.S. Southwest, the decline in population during the 16th and 17th centuries was nothing short of catastrophic. population may have fallen by up to 90% through devilish means, including warfare, famine, and slavery, all with resulting epidemics. The majority of the enslaved were women and children, an obvious precursor and trailblazer for the sex trafficking of today. But for the massive revolt of the indigenous in 1680 in what is now New Mexico, the toll might have been much worse. The United States is the inheritor of the munificent crimes of not only London, but Madrid too. When Hernando de Soto crossed what became known as the Mississippi River in the 1530s, he had enslaved indigenes as he helped to clear the land for what became the future's comfortable U.S. suburbs. Through disease spread by these interlopers, it is often trotted out to explain the spectacular downturn in the fortunes of indigenous Americans, genocide. In virtually every meaning of the term, including volitional acts by invading settlers, it is the proximate cause of this towering mountain of cadavers. Thus, even when enslaved Africans choose suicide, which they were often forced to do, it would be folly to suggest that enslavers were guiltless. Did y'all want to build on that at all? I had a thought, just a quick thought about De Soto in Spain. One thing that we should be cognizant of is like when the English came and the French came to the Americas, a lot of damage was already done by Spain. And De Soto being one of those, especially like throughout the southern region to maybe, I guess, what you call the Midwest over there around what would now be like Texas. When De Soto came, he spread, him and the Spanish spread a lot of diseases like smallpox, for instance, that the indigenous people weren't immune to, had no immunity to. And so a lot of the indigenous people that were hit, you would have whole groups of people that were being wiped out during this period. So when the English and the French would come over here, a lot of these spaces, the populations had massively declined, making it easier for them to like really conquer, and making it easier for more Spanish too to come in those areas and take control. So, you know, the diseases that were spreading throughout the Americas were really weakening the indigenous people, making it easier for I guess like the Europeans that would come later to win through warfare, to take the lands through warfare. So it wasn't, you know, for a lack of just like fighting, like it was these decisive battles, and they really, you know, just took these lands by force. Because a lot of the Spanish, when they would come initially, they would be wiped out. One of the earliest settlements in the Americas, like Spanish settlements that was abandoned, was in the early 1500s here in what would be like Georgia, South Carolina, and which people say represented the first African settlements going back to 1525. But I just wanted to interject that. I don't know if there was anything I read that y'all wanted to build on.
Yeah, just in particular where on the first page, where he says that
I'll go
that you know, it then passed the baton to its revolting spawn, the United States, which has carried global dominance into the present century. And when I was reading that part, it made me think about how the United States is the offspring of, and you know, and I've thought this before, but it just made me think about it more and a little further and a little deeper, how the United States is the offspring of England and, you know, European and other European powers, like you were saying, right? We know that you have the Portuguese, the Spanish coming in, and the Dutch, and having them come in, and they're waging their own sort of brutality against the indigenous people. And then you have the English come in and, you know, put upon the indigenous people their own type of brutality as well. And all of those countries also, and along with waging their particular types of brutality onto indigenous people, also wage their own in particular brutalities onto African people, and took up and learned from each other. When we think about the slave trade, So that now, if we're thinking about it in, thinking of the United States as a spawn of its precursor nations, right? It's as the child of its European precursor nations. What does a child usually have? It has the traits of its parents, right? And what are usually children expected to do, but also what do they usually do? They carry on the family lineage, right? They carry on the work of the family. And that the United States has carried on the lineage of its parents, right? Of its European parents that came before it and set the way, and that it learned from, and that it continued to develop on top of, and until today. And so when people, I think, like, when people think about the United States as something different than those European powers, that the way they exist today and the way that they've existed historically, they think that the United States is not different. No, you need to think of it, if you think about it more, to help you understand, as a child of. And what do children do? They learn. Your parents teach you, right? They raise you up in particular types of ways, especially that are beneficial to them, right?
Yeah.
You're going to do what is beneficial to you, what you have seen been done and has worked out in your favor. And so I like, the way in which Gerald Horne phrases it, right? That it passed the baton to its revolting spawn, right? That it and continues to carry on the work of Europeans, and not just the work of Europeans, but even the cultural practices of Europeans, right? The cultural understandings of Europeans. It carries that with it. It is not disconnected from Europe, even though it is not in Europe.
Yeah. And I think, like, to the point about the children, you're explaining to them, you're instilling in them ideas about how they were able to attain what they have as far as land, the wealth, ideas that are rationalizing the way that they were able to gain control over people, resources, and land. So I think that that's important. So that's which is becoming part of the culture, right? The spread of this information and ideas that's being passed on from generation to generation, because the design that was created during this period, as they're designing and creating the structure, that is still in place to this day. The development of capitalism, right, which is continuing to it has reached like new heights in regards to exploitation. But during that time, they were putting it all together, right? And it was still, they were going through things. It was dealing with certain policies and laws, that because they were when I say Europeans were still dealing with conflict and dealing with competition between each other. So you would have that period of mercantilism, where it was, I guess it was almost like the what would they call that, because mercantilism, and in a sense, basically, free trade wasn't of the day, right? That wasn't the practice of the day. So you would have France and you have England with their colonies to trade. The colonists will only be able to sell and trade with people within the colony and the mother country. Everything that they produce was to benefit the mother country, right? And so that will break down. But the point being, though, when it comes to where we are today, that's why the descendants of Europeans don't take ownership of the atrocities that their ancestors have committed. And in fact, they continue to carry on the atrocities of oppression and exploitation because of this relationship where they overwhelmingly control the wealth, right, around the world. So they, being the benefactors of beneficiaries of colonialism and imperialism, right? They don't want to give that up. So they don't want to hear anything about, redistribution of wealth, or, capitalism is bad. they are the beneficiaries of it.
That is their generational wealth.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything before I know we let me read like one more paragraph. I'll pass it to you, Frank. Let me read like one or two more paragraphs. Through disease spread by these interlopers, it is often trotted out to explain the spectacular downturn in the fortunes of indigenous Americans. Oh, I read that. Oh, sorry about that. But within the broad expanse of centuries, it is the 17th that stands out conspicuously as the takeoff of London's involvement in the nasty business of enslavement, which simultaneously delivered bounteous profits that set the stage for a rationalization of humanity, while setting yet another stage for the takeoff of an enhanced capitalism. A recent study revealed that before 1581, there were no enslaved Africans brought to what was referred to as the British Caribbean and mainland North America. From 1581 to 1640, there were scores brought to each. But from 1641 to 1700, 15,000 Africans were brought to North America and 308,000 to the British Caribbean. Similarly, trade from Dutch forts in Africa amounted to about 700 of the enslaved yearly between 1600 and 1644, but would increase sixfold by the late 1660s. Europeans generally enslaved some 2 million Africans during the 17th century, half of them from West Central Africa and most of the rest from the states abutting today's Ghana and the bights of Benin and Biafra. What is euphemistically referred to as modernity is marked with the indelible stain of what might be termed the three horsemen of the apocalypse: slavery, white supremacy, and capitalism, with the bloody process of human bondage being the driving and animating force of this abject horror. Decades ago, the Guyanese scholar Walter Rodney sketched adroitly how Europe underdeveloped Africa and correspondingly how Western Europe was boiled by dint of ravaging this beleaguered continent. The slave trade left the infirm and elderly behind and took the rest. Systems of agriculture, mining, production of metal, cotton, wood, straw, clay, and leather goods, trade, transport, and governance that had evolved over centuries were wounded severely. Community was turned against community, neighbor against neighbor. Simultaneously, the agents of this apocalypse profited handsomely. I'll stop right there. Frank, did you want to build on anything there?
Yeah, sure. And once again, you guys set it up, but this article, it just gonna remind us again. It just a article that also remind us. Let me say this. For each time we talk about these things, and you will hear some white folks will say, why can't we just move on, and forget about the past? Whenever white folks says that, why can't we just move on and forget about the past, right? They are actually trying to tell you they love the stage that you are in, and they love the stage that they are in. They love the fact that they have more opportunity than you. They love the fact that you are always in a position of being oppressed, and they love the fact that they are the superior being in their mind, and we are the inferior being in their mind. Now, the fact that they will always says, why can't we just move on and forget about the past when the past is still living the present? That is to say that, listen, they know if we continue their path of researching and educating our people, they're going to lose their position. They're going to lose what they have or what their forefathers have built, have left for them. And because they don't want to lose it, that is why they always say, why can't we move on and forget about the past? Because they want us to remain ignorant. And the more we remain ignorant, the truth of the matter is they will do to us what they did in the past. Because if you look at history, these white folks, these Europeans, they have never ever built an opportunity of equal and plain fair for everyone to live in harmony. There have been no history that the Europeans have gone anywhere and lived with harmony with those people that they met there. It has always been looting, killing, exploitation, and overtaking the land. At the end, the people or the inhabitant of that place have to fight. If they can win, they win. If they don't win, then they be driven away from our land, and then, or if they live in our land, become a subspecies in that land. And if you give these people the chance, they will do what their forefathers did. And that is what they will always say is, what can we move on? And we will not move on because we do not want to go back. We do not want to be put in a position that our forefathers, even those things are not yet still better for us. But we will keep fighting, because if we give you white folks the chance, you will do even more than what you did to our forefather, because history is a proof to us.
And the present, yeah, like you said, a lot of the things that we think about that have been done in the past, they're being continued here, but in a slightly different way, because we know that, yes, history does, the saying that history repeats itself. We know that it doesn't exactly repeat itself, but that it adjusts for its time. And so those things that were done historically are continuing to be done today. So maybe, for example, you can't outright just sterilize Black women, but you can make sure that you don't give them the proper medical treatment or care, so that you have high infant mortality rates, as well as high maternal death rates as well. So it's those things that are still continuing that help to profit, like Gerald Horn is saying, that the weakening of and the destruction of the weakening of the societies and economies and systems of Africa help to, at the same time, provide the impetus for profit for these European countries. And in the same way, the same things that are being done today that are similar to the past provide an impetus for the profits, right? When we think about capitalism of the country today. And so those things continue to still exist, because without those, your wealth is severely diminished, right? We look at the economies of Britain. They're propped up on having their what do they call those countries? The Commonwealth, right? The countries of the Commonwealth, which are the
Commonwealth,
right? Which are the former colonial possessions, right? The Caribbean countries that they have, the countries that were the African countries that were imperialized are all part of the Commonwealth. And what are they doing? Their suffering props up the European, the British or UK economy. And the same thing with France, right? They have France, that's France proper. And then they have the France broader that includes their former colonial nations that are also propping up their economies while those nations are suffering. So it's the same thing. It just looks slightly different. And so they continue to profit.
Hey, and the kicker is, the suffering that's being caused as they generate all of this wealth. They send their children and the neo-colonialist children to the schools, right? And create these programs and institutions to solve the problems, right? To address the suffering. So they're able to create jobs for their people, to come and help the people that's suffering, the same people that's causing, right, the issues, and is able to generate money from it. Okay, let's take some of these resources and put it back into these places that they have basically degraded, right, and left dilapidated. it's crazy. So it's an ongoing cycle. It's an ongoing cycle. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for tapping in. We're gonna be making a hard stop. We got a program, or at least I got a program. You're gonna
and I have the Veronza Bauer piece.
While you pull that up, really quick too, make sure when we come back next Saturday, go through the introduction. Finish the introduction. We'll probably sum up the introduction when we come back, but we'll be moving into chapter 1. So we'll do just like a quick overview, and then go into chapter 1. So everybody should have that link. Also, hopefully you have access to our Google Drive with all of the books. That's where we place our books. But if not, definitely, where would they find that? I guess, is it on our website? Make sure you go to wechargecolonialism.org as well. But I'll make sure you got it. I'm always looking out for you guys. Go ahead.
So I'm sharing. I think you have to give me. Yeah, there we go. And then just adjust it to the side so that people could see. And as well as the banner that's on the bottom, not the banner that's on the bottom, but the Apocalypse of Settler Colonialism, so that people could see the whole flyer. Yeah, there we go. So yes, so like I said before, Friday, November 22nd from 6 to 8. And this is the address here.
All right.
And that'll be in New York.
And definitely, I don't know if you tapped in late, but go back to the beginning to get the information about Dhoruba bin Wahad and find out how you can donate and support him. If you're in the Philadelphia area, there is an fundraising event going on today. But you can check out the beginning of this podcast to get the information, the QRC and all of that. All right. But appreciate everyone for tapping in, and hope to see you all next Saturday. And remember, organize. There's no one person, or one election that's going to liberate African people, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
All right. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
We're going